Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Now, in today's video, we are going to have a look at just a couple of seal clubbing tanks. Now, what do I mean when it comes to seal clubbing? Now, back in the day of Blitz, there were a lot of seal clubbers, and I mean a lot of seal clubbers. Personally, I wouldn't say I was one of them, but I just enjoyed playing lower tier. Doesn't make me a seal clubber because, to be honest, I was spamming the Loosh or the Lux in tier 4. But I was spamming that when I was a bad player. I was 48%. And actually playing the Lux made me learn the game. And once I got better, I started going up the tiers, and most of that was an absolute lie. I just spammed the Lux because it was a fantastic tank, and I started going up the tiers once the Lux had been nerfed. But yeah, just pretend that don't happen. But no, on a serious note, I've never really been too keen on seal clubbers. Now, there's a difference between going in lower tier and having fun to going into lower tiers just to cause havoc, just to farm win rate. And there's a difference. There is an absolute difference. Now, for me, for example, I might go and play tier 2 or tier 1 or tier 3. Doesn't mean I'm a seal clubber. It just means I fancy going to play tier 1, 2 or 3 or even 4. Doesn't at all make me a seal clubber. But yet, if I was just to stay at tier 4 or tier 3 in certain tanks just to farm win rate, then that would make you a seal clubber. There are plenty of people out there that still seal club. There's plenty of, I've seen people with, 60, 70,000 battles that haven't even played a tier 6. Yeah, that's how insane it's got. Most of them have been in tier 3 and tier 4. Now, I get that it's a game and people are supposed to play the game to have fun. If you are a tier 4 player, for example, and then you go to tier 10 and you're not having fun, you're dying, then why wouldn't you play tier 4? Like, if you're having fun, that is, again, a different kind of matter. But if you're going just to farm win rate, then that is classed as being a seal clubber. So if you are wanting to have a bit of fun in tier 3 or tier 4 or there's even some tier 2s, then what tanks can you choose? Now, first up, we got this tank right here, the Matilda. Yes, the tier 4 Matilda. And to be honest, this tank now isn't as good as it used to be, but if you're a new player, then this tank is absolutely fun to play. It's a brutal tank because no one can really penetrate you. You got a lot of armor, but if you're just going down seal clubbing in tier 4, then you will probably get annihilated with this tank, or you can get annihilated. You can still get the bounces, of course, but people will know how to deal with you. But it's still, to this day, and it always has been, a seal clubbing tank. Now, there are a couple of tanks that are not on this list that deserves a worthy mention, and that is the Panzer B2. Now, of course, I've spoken about the Panzer B2 many times, and the Valentine, I can't remember what Valentine, but that has preferential matchmaking. Both of them tanks have preferential matchmaking, where you are always top tier. You will never see tier 5 unless you're platooning with someone in a different tank. But the Matilda is still a seal clubbing tank to this day. The next tank, of course, most people will not have this tank. It is the Kenny Otsu. This is the ultimate seal clubber. This is not just the ultimate seal clubber. This is the ultimate ace clubber. Or the ace farmer, because it is the easiest tank in the game to ace. Once you get to around 800 or 700 damage, if you've got a couple of kills and it's a win, you can almost certain that it is that's going to be a mastery. It's the easiest tank to ace. Now, I don't really play this tank, to be honest. My ultimate goal for this tank is to get it to 100 battles. So I've had it a couple of years now, and I've got what, not even 50 battles in it. So I don't play it as much as I would like. But yeah, it's definitely a seal clubbing tank. You can farm, especially if you're top tier as well, you can absolutely farm the enemy team. Now, I'm not going to talk about the tank so much because we've had a load of videos on the Kenny Otsu. But another tank, if you don't have the Kenny Otsu, which probably 98% of you don't, then you can also play the Kenny or the Kini, which is very similar to this. Obviously, it doesn't have the reload that this tank has got, but nowadays and age, a lot of people actually prefer the Kenny over the Kenny Otsu. It has better pen. I think it's got better gun depression. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, a lot of people do prefer the collectible Kenny over the Kenny Otsu. But that's again personal preference. I still prefer the Kenny Otsu over that Kenny. But it's definitely both of these tanks currently, the Kenny and the Kenny Otsu, are seal clubbing tanks. So these tanks, if you see people in these tanks, the Kenny or the Kenny Otsu, then they're most likely going to be seal clubbing. If you see me in a Kenny Otsu, then I'm most likely either trying to make a video, I'm trying to farm aces, or I am trying to get the tank to 100 battles. Because I had a mission with the clan event. I had a mission where I had to get 6 masteries, like 6 class 1 masteries. What better to do? There's no other tank better than to do that with the Kenny Otsu, because all it's going to take is 6 battles. You go into tier 10 and you've got to get at least a minimum first class. You could be playing for a while, especially if you've got 10 to do, or sorry, 6 to do. Whereas you go in the Kenny Otsu, 6 battles, you're almost guaranteed to get a first class or a second class. And even if you go AFK, you're probably going to get a third class. So that is how easy this tank is to master. So this tank, tier 3, the Japanese tier 3 premium and the Japanese tier 3 collectible, the Kenny, are both seal clubbing tank. So you can see there, just 1,000 damage done, 4 kills, and that is a guaranteed mastery badge. So that is another seal clubbing tank, or tanks, shall I say. So the next tank on the list at the moment, I would say this is the boss. This is the boss at seal clubbing, and that is the M5 Stuart. You will see a lot of these. I mean, look on the enemy team, the Kennys. There's 3 Kennys on the enemy team, and there's 1 on our team and 2 M5 Stuarts. But even though this tank doesn't have much armor, it is still a fantastic seal clubbing tank. If you want to go down, have a bit of fun in tier 3, maybe farm a bit of win rate, as a lot of people playing this tank is doing, because I mean, I've seen people with around about 10,000 battles in this tank. It's crazy. Not just because it's fun, because it wins. And there used to be many other seal clubbing tanks that are not so much seal clubbing tanks nowadays, as I've said, with the Lux, the tier 5 Leopard. You've also got the A20, which used to be the ultimate seal clubber. Again, with the A20, I've seen people have tens and thousands of battles in the A20. But this day and age, these are the seal clubbers. These are the real seal clubbers, and the M5 Stuart is definitely up there. And also this Stuart, I think, is it the M3 Stuart in tier 2? That is also a seal clubbing tank in tier 2, but not a lot of people, to be honest, do seal club in tier 2. I think it's just something to do with the waiting. They're in queue for a long time, whereas tier 3 or tier 4, you can normally get into a battle straight away. So these are, in my opinion, the seal clubbing tanks in this day and age. They have changed, or some tanks have changed from a few years ago. These tanks, maybe the Kenny Otsu, but the rest of the tanks would not be on this list. But let me know what you think is the ultimate seal clubbing tank in the game, or what tank do you use to seal club in this game. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye. With